All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I'm your host, Damon Pistolka, and I am excited for our guest today because we have none other than Susan Bryant here today. And we're going to be talking about why accounting should be a priority as a business owner. Susan, thanks for being here today.
Oh, Damon, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Susan is with Unboxed Advisors out of Dallas. Susan, you're a longtime CPA. You've been in tax advisor. It's awesome to get you on the show. And I didn't even realize it. This is 4/16. It's a day after taxes are due. You probably got a, we're now at least got that big rush. Now we're working on all the extended returns, but great to have you here. I'm so excited to talk today.
Well, dittos. Yes, it is. We are breathing a little easier now.
Yeah. So let's hear a little bit about your background. We always like to talk about how you got into what you're doing today. And I think it's going to be real important for our listeners to understand that history so they, when we start talking about how a business owner, their accounting, some of the features around it, you've been there and done that. So.
Yeah. As with some professionals, I got into accounting all sorts of backwards. So I have a degree in marketing. I took some accounting classes in college because my career counselor said that I would get paid more money with my first job right out of college. And I could hear my mom in my ear, like, yes, you need to get paid more. Hurry up, get out of college so we can
Get a good job. Get a good job.
Get a good job. So I've always been a fan of math. So I just kept taking more accounting classes. And so when I graduated from UT, I couldn't have a double major, but I just had all these hours of accounting. So I took my first job was being an internal auditor at a bank. Kept pursuing this, and then I ultimately passed the CPA exam on my first try, and said, "Hey, I'm going to try my hand at this public accounting thing. What does it mean to be a CPA?"
Oh, public accounting. Okay.
Yeah. So that's where I started. I started working in a very small firm, so it was me and the partner. And you're going to wear all the hats when you work in a firm like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it was an excellent way for me to truly understand all the facets that are happening from an accounting perspective in a business. And that kind of led me down a path to become an auditor for a while. And then I really enjoyed the aspects of accounting that allow you to influence and create value in the organization. So I spent probably a decade being an outsourced accounting provider at a CPA firm where I was part owner. And that was a phenomenal experience because we were taking these businesses where they did not have the adequate talent in place. They didn't know how to do accounting the right way. And we basically created a practice. And this was back when outsourcing was like unheard of. Now outsourcing your accounting is commonplace. If you're not outsourcing your accounting, it's almost like, why are you trying to hire somebody? You can't even find it. So so that was a really an incredible experience. Continued to manage and lead that for quite a long time. I had done taxes before when I first started and started getting more into the tax planning kind of as I started functioning at a higher level with those business owners. And now at Unboxed Advisors, what we're finding is those business owners, they need even more. They need more time with accountants to truly bridge that gap between what the more traditional accountants are doing in terms of compliance, the basic blocking and tackling, and all the other things that are going to get them to where they want to be financially, where, their dreams come true.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point. We'll get back to that because that is a big deal is, when you think about the traditional compliance, okay, I'm not getting fined, on a tax or something like that, to really helping people build wealth with their accounting decisions. I think that's definitely something that we'll cover here today because it's a big deal. So when you're back, so in public accounting, I'm always amazed at public accounting compared to private accounting. So what do you think that public accounting really taught you that you're going, it really helps me even today?
Oh, I can't even. I mean, accounting is my love language. Like, I can't even imagine a world without debits and credits. A few things about accounting and why it's impacted me so significantly. First off, I love business. And as Warren Buffett says, accounting is the language of business.
Yeah.
It is just, it is embedded in the business. And if you are a business owner and you are distanced from your accounting, you are distanced from your success. That's just all there is to it.
Yep.
So, uh, that's one of the reasons why I really love accounting. They are just, to me, it the entrepreneur lives and dies by those financials. And
Yep.
it is important to have that function working perfectly in your business.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing about accounting is, especially public accounting, is that it's broad. People come to accountants to have many problems addressed, and accountants are often looked to be a resource in many different capacities. Some of it is entity structuring, it's tax planning, it's the accounting. It's helped me understand how I could make my business more valuable. And then ultimately, down the road, succession planning and estate planning. It just runs the gamut of how you can influence and build true wealth as an individual. So for those reasons, I just love accounting. It is truly it is a place. It's almost a refuge of sorts for people who really love business because they are just so tied together.
Yeah. Yeah. I still remember the first job that I had where I really figured that out. When you really understand why it's so, because I've got an engineering degree like you. I didn't start out doing financial work. And as I started to get into running companies, and you really begin to understand how important that is. And of course, at that time, they sent me off to get more training in finance and do a bunch of that good stuff. But, from a practical level, when you really understand your numbers, the finances, and I think more than monthly, even in the situations that I'm in, we like to do it, but it gives you a whole new perspective on your business. It's just
Oh,
that perspective. You can just go home and sleep at night because you know that things are happening. They're going right, or when they are not, okay, let's adjust something.
yeah.
And
It's your first
so,
warning signs, right? It's where the
yeah,
first
it's
red
so
flags
powerful.
sort of pop up.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I can't tell you how many people that we talk to and get into a fast growing business, and they go, "Oh, wow, we're not making any money." And you look at it and you go, "Okay, let's just see. Cash is one thing, profit's another." And they start to really understand the different pieces in finance as a business is growing. And everybody says, "I want to scale from 0 to $100 million in 1 year." And then when you realize, okay, if that means that you have inventory and receivables and other things that go on that, do you really understand what that's going to take to do that?
Mhm.
Because most people don't understand that cost, that capital cost and the growth of a business. And, we've, I can remember a conversation not too many years ago when a client grew an awful lot, and they were a client that liked to buy inventory, and they were an importer. And of course, you're buying them in chunks of a few $100,000 a container kind of thing. Oh, I
Right.
just bought 5 more containers. You come in, well, we don't need those 5. Oh, the supplier called me. They had them ready. I just told them to ship them. And then 3 months later, they're like, "Oh, I'm says I'm making money, but we don't have any money." I said, "Well, your inventory went up by $8 million.
Right. Yeah.
That's where your money went."
Yeah. Uh, it's cash. And now we're real focused on inventory turnover, right?
Yeah.
How fast can we sell this? Are we going to
Yeah.
keep the margin that we wanted in order to turn it into profit? I mean, the whole point of inventory, right, is to uh, buy it and then sell it for more than you bought it for. I mean, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
So it is a challenge when business owners there's a disconnect in their mind,
That's
right? They don't necessarily understand fully how these items are all integrated together. And this is, I think, the role that you play and we play in supporting each other and supporting the business owner, is to help educate them so they are
Yes,
making better
definitely.
decisions. And they're not, I mean, they're not creating problems for themselves. I mean, I'm sure there's leadership coaches all over the planet who would say, you just got to get out of your own way. Well, this is one of those areas where if you don't have the right technical support on the accounting side, you're
Yeah.
basically in your own way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is. And, we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but the one thing that I've seen over the years, recently, in the last 10 years anyway, is the level of complexity to accounting has grown significantly.
Yeah.
And just so we're kind of going down a road on some things,
Okay.
but I did want to go back because we're talking about why accounting should be a priority as an owner. And let's talk about, first of all, some basics, the discipline of accounting. What are some of the things that you'd like to talk about the just getting good accounting discipline and how that can help you?
Just like any other good habit, accounting is one of those things that has to happen routinely. There has to be the proper procedures. There has to be the proper resources. And there has to be the proper accountability. And accountants should be good at accountability anyway. But for whatever reason, sometimes this is just one of those areas, well, I just couldn't get it done by the deadline. And as a business owner, we have to understand and clear the path for how to make this discipline a priority. So you can't overload or overwhelm the accounting function. This is very tempting. Business owners like, oh, they can also do IT. They can handle some of the HR stuff. And so that accounting function gets overwhelmed with all of the other things that are important in the business, and then the accounting starts to suffer.
Yes.
And so that discipline starts to fade. And then everybody says, well, what's going on? This is a problem. What went wrong? Well, you got to be thinking strategically about how to use those resources most effectively.
Mm-hmm.
This is becoming an even more and more important thing because are in short supply. And excellent accountants are in really short supply. I mean, I'm sure you guys have been, listeners have been hearing and seeing, I mean, even the Wall Street Journal is posting articles about how now even the SEC is noting errors in 10K reports and 10Q reports because the quality of the auditors, it's just not there. And the quality of the accountants doing the work for even the publicly traded companies is not there. So guess who's going to suffer even more when it comes to finding talent? Smaller businesses. It's going to be even more difficult. So you got to make sure you're being very thoughtful about identifying is a priority when it comes to accounting, what you're going to put on those people, and try to make sure that you're not creating an environment where the accounting becomes less of a focus and something else replaces it.
You make a great point there, because as a business grows, it's real tempting in the beginning. Like you said, it could be your office manager. They could be doing HR. They could be doing accounting. They could be buying stuff. Even sometimes you see that. But as that business grows, you really need to think about those different buckets and how much time they're taking, because when you look at it, people are going to be coming to them. You think of the squeaky wheel. They're going to be coming to them when they don't have materials they need. So they're going to worry about ordering. They're definitely going to make sure that payroll gets done, because people don't get paid. That's not a good thing at all.
Never good.
So accounting, that just kind of gets pushed down the road, and that can really suffer first because those other things are so immediate and urgent.
It's true. So yeah, business owners, I feel like they accounting people are people pleasers. They want to do a good job. This is just part of the DNA of being an accountant. If you are a player, a really good team player when it comes to accounting, you won't tell somebody no. You're like, okay, I'll take that on. I can get that done. I'll find a way. But really, there is a max capacity for people.
Yep.
And it's up to the business owner to really provide that leadership of saying, no, the accounting is important. And I want this to remain a primary focus for you. How can I help alleviate this? How do we get you the support that you need?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's a great point. So these accountants are getting busier and busier. So we hear a lot of talk about automation. We talk about AI. What are some of the things that you're seeing that are really starting to help accounting departments and accountants themselves save time in what they're doing?
Okay. Automation is the future. I mean, we all know it. I mean, come on, the chat GPT, I mean, it's coming. The key for accountants is that maybe the odd thing in the DNA of accountants is that they don't like to change.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to fight against that as business leaders. And we are going to have to encourage technology. I think ultimately, once the business case is proven that automation will make your life easier and it will decrease the burden that is on you of having to do things manually, speed things up, make them more accurate. It will get easier. But that initial, like, hey, we're going to automate accounts payable. We're going to get every app that we have syncing with the accounting software so we don't have to record all things manually.
Mm-hmm.
That's the future. It's got to happen. We just are going to have to work with people differently to give them time to get those things set up. You can't, hey, I need all this stuff. Keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. Oh, by the way, I need to have 3 initiatives where you're automating these 4 processes. It's, again, you can't do it. You need the right leadership on spearheading those automation projects to get them done effectively so they don't create more problems down the road. So that would be my automation is the future. It needs to be done. That includes AP, payroll, I mean, AR. I mean, now even there's programs that will do all of the automation of accrual entries, recognition of deferred revenue. You name it, there's software out there that does it. It's just a matter of configuring it and implementing it in a very cohesive way that it doesn't disrupt all of the other things going on in the business.
Yeah. Yep. So so we're talking about automation, and I know we can get far down the road in automation, but what are some of, like, I'm looking at automation today, what's like step 1 and step 2, maybe step 3 that you would start to look at as a business owner thinking about this? I've got an accountant that's it's getting harder for him to get things done.
Yeah. I think it's sort of like how people say to talk to business owners and say, what are your biggest pain points? It's the same thing when you talk to accountants. What are the things that are taking you the most time? If the financials are getting done late, what is it that's causing that? Where are these systemic issues in the processes that are delaying the ability for you to get the things done quickly, efficiently, accurately, without having to go back and like, let me fix that. That's not right. So that's where I would start. I would start with a conversation of really trying to diagnose where are the bottlenecks, where are the hangups, where are the things that just take a lot of time, where we could really leverage technology as our friend to make things faster, better, easier, and ultimately, improving the quality of life for the accountants who are under the gun to get stuff done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a ton of comments. I want to say thank you to the people with the comments here today. I'm not seeing a lot of the pictures of people, but there's a great question here. Any guidance for solopreneurs or those getting started on how to build a solid accounting infrastructure that will grow with your company?
Ooh, that's a great question. The first thing that comes to mind is have a good chart of accounts. Oh my gosh. Damon, I'm sure you could speak to this. I mean, I think that is the starting point for every solid accounting infrastructure is chart of accounts. And think about what it is that you are going to want to see on the back end of that reporting and what's going to make sense to profitability, to evaluate performance, to evaluate revenue mix, like all of those things. The chart of accounts is really the beginning part of that. And for all those people who are like, oh, I just like QuickBooks, auto create the chart of accounts, delete it and start over. Okay. And you can email me and I'll give you one. Okay.
I love that. Delete it and start over.
Use the numbers too. Please use the numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing that, this is sort of tangential to that, but pretty matters when it comes to financials. A lot of times people say, oh, well, I've got, it doesn't really matter. It's in there. It doesn't have to look good. I beg your pardon, accounting records have to be pretty, because if it doesn't look pretty, it doesn't pass the sniff test. Like if it doesn't look good, it's
Yeah.
not credible, period.
Yep.
So just make sure presentation is really on the list of things to consider. So outside of that, I would begin trying to leverage every piece of technology as you are building an accounting infrastructure in a new business. Think
Yeah.
thoughtfully about getting those things configured and create user adoption from the beginning. If you're going to automate accounts payable, automate it from the get-go. Wait, it doesn't make sense. Same for like expense reports. If you're using a payroll service, set up where it maps all the way into your software and it pushes.
Yeah.
Take the time to get those things set up right from the beginning. It will just make your life way easier.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. Those integration between different systems, even in a solopreneur company, if you're doing credit card payments, all these other things, they can all be integrated to be able to, so you're not manually entering. That's a huge thing.
It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there are still people manually entering payroll or accounts payable or bank transaction. I mean, it's happening, and it really needs to be questioned.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you look at it, and we work with a fair amount of e-commerce clients, and in e-commerce, a lot of them do thousands of transactions a week. And when when you start to look at this thing and you start out today, I go, well, I sold 10 things on my site today, but what's it like when you sell 100, or what's it like when you sell 1,000? And just think of the difference in workload that means. And it gets, and we've seen it, it gets to a point to where you go, oh, we're just going to do spreadsheet download, spreadsheet upload. When you start to do that, that even gets ugly after you get going, so you really need to think about this and see your map, I guess, or how you're going to go from where you are to where you're going to be. And like you said, start automated in the beginning if you can, because it's so much better.
Yeah. And keep exploring. I mean, this is like any other facet of your tech stack. You're going to come back and keep looking at this stuff. How can it be better? What new tools are out there? This is just a constant refinement of the business. And accounting is just one of those things you can't neglect. Now, a lot of times, and Damon, I'm sure you hear this from a lot of business owners, it's like, but that's going to cost money and I'm going to have to account. It's just accounting. Okay, guys, this is where I want to we got to completely change your mindset about accounting. Accounting is not a cost center. It is an opportunity center. All the opportunities in your business lie in you understanding your accounting records better. Okay, so you want to spend money in that area. You want to invest in good accounting. You want to invest in the right talent, the right technology, the right systems, the right processes around your accounting. And Damon, as you also know, the first thing somebody's going to ask for when they want to buy your business is what?
Financial statements.
Your financials. Okay. So you will have just invested in the one thing that will get you in front of the right buyer.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure. That's for sure. And you talked about a few things there. I want to say someone, I can't see who it is that said it, but someone says, email me your chart of accounts, please. So you'll have to reach out to Susan after this and do that. But you talked about talent, and wow, has that been a huge topic with business owners that are looking for accounting talent, or with their existing, and then just because we talked about the increasing complexity. But what about as you grow, your business grows, and you really need to think about, how am I going to upgrade my talent? I mean, now I'm at the size that maybe have to get CPA reviews every year because I've got bank loans or something like that. What are some of the things that these owners should consider as they're moving through these phases in their talent?
Yeah. I think the first sort of rule of thumb is what got you here is not going to get you there. And just keep repeating that to yourself over and over again when it comes to your accounting talent. Okay. So yes, when a business first starts, they don't need a CFO, right? It's not necessary. But as the company grows and expands, they're going to start building out different facets of their accounting department, their finance team, right? The team sort of has this way of coming together. The danger that I see in this is that many people they think that just because someone's been with them a long time, functioning in an accounting capacity, that is sort of the trajectory to put them into a position that would bear the title of controller or CFO. And that is a very dangerous business. I can think of one example in particular. This has been a couple years ago. We were actually, as CPAs, brought in to prepare a tax return only. But the challenge is that there was a consulting company working with this company. They wanted to sell their business.
Mm-hmm.
They had essentially a billing clerk who had kind of risen in the ranks of the company, right? Great at what they did, fantastic employee, checks off all the like culture fit, everything. And they put this person in a position of CFO, kind of unknowing, like, what does that really mean? And what does that person really need to be responsible for? The consulting company was brought in because when they were like, hey, we'd like to sell our company. Hey, CFO, like, let's look at the financials. There were no financials. The CFO had been working with the accountant, and basically they would just put a set of books together, like at the end of every year to prepare a tax return, and nothing existed. I mean, payroll was getting done, billing was getting done, money was coming in, but there was no general ledger.
Whoa.
Oh, I know. Okay, so like that's probably the worst possible situation. Mind blowing. That happened 2 years ago. Okay, 2 years ago. So it's still happening that there's not the right talent overseeing these different, and for business owners who just don't know the difference, they think this person knows what they're doing. I'm trusting them to do this. Like, they're good.
Yeah.
They've got the title, like everything's cool. You know how to do all this, and they don't. So that's a really important component of this. Just because someone's been with you for a while, maybe they're really great at one specific job, does not necessarily mean that they are going to rise into the position, these higher level, more strategic financial positions. Proceed carefully and with caution. Like, you're doing a disservice to that person, and you're also doing a disservice to the business and, frankly, to yourself.
Yeah.
And same for the small business. So like the person who's like, hey, how to set up a solid accounting infrastructure. Like, first off, don't hire the office manager and call him the CFO. Bad move. Okay. That's not good either.
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing that I see today that as we're talking about this comes to mind for me. And we talk about outsource, you talk about outsource accounting, and you talk about fractional accounting now. I mean, we have so many more options than we ever did before, especially with the advent of things like QuickBooks Online, where your accountant can be anywhere in the world, literally, doing your accounting with some oversight to really allow you to, from the beginning, set up a solid accounting system with very talented people right from the beginning, even if you're just buying a sliver of their time as they're working for you.
But Damon, you hit on a really good point there, and that is the oversight. So it's not management by abdication. It's not like, I don't know, the outsourced accountants do that. Oh, no. Just because you hire an outsourced bookkeeper, accounting service, whatever it is, there still has to be this level of supervision and review that's happening on a monthly basis, or perhaps even more frequently, depending on what's happening in your business. There has to be something more that's happening there. So I'm a big fan of bridging that gap between the transactional and the business owner. There needs to be a liaison there who's helping to interpret those results and drive some of the initiatives. Like, okay, hey, we were going to work on selling more of this product. What's happening with this? That's not happening. Okay, we're systemically now. Are the salespeople not informed as to what we're focusing on? Like, right. So it's all of those things, the communication now that gets cascaded throughout the organization as a result of getting that financial information. But supervision is the key.
Yeah, that really, you made a great point there. The interpreter between the financial numbers and what's going on in the business is key to be able to turn the knowledge into action to help your business. And that's great. That, and another thing you said too, that I don't want to take lightly, and I want everyone listening to think, you can't just hand your accounting off to somebody else. You still have to check the books. You still have to at least know, even if you're a solopreneur, you have to know enough to go, okay, look through the bills we paid, made sure you paid who you thought you were going to pay, make sure things tie out a little bit. And because you never know what you could be spending way more than you thought. And it's your responsibility at the end,
Yeah. I mean, internal control is still a thing.
Yeah.
Segregation of duties is still a thing.
Yep.
Even in a smaller business, monitoring controls are still a thing. And that sounds really big, like to business owners, like, oh, but again, with a properly designed accounting function, those things are placed strategically throughout the process so that you can sleep at night. Like you said, like, my financials are going. I know my money is my money and it's in my bank account and not somebody else's bank account.
Yep.
It's kind of all of those things working together. So there are a lot of components to
yeah, and you bring up the simple internal controls. I mean, why we saw why accounting should be a priority as an owner. And I'm going to tell you the one simple control that I was drilled into my head as I worked for investment owners is, we have these controls in place to make sure that we don't have to worry about these things. And the one that I always see is, if your bookkeeper can sign a check for you, it's probably a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Yes.
You don't need to be the one. You don't necessarily, if you're the owner and never there, you may not be the one that needs to sign the check, but somebody else needs to sign it. And somebody else that you trust needs to sign it. Not that you don't trust your bookkeeper, because they may be a great person, but to have two people, and I've seen this before too, situations in life come up. And the next thing you know, you find out that your business doesn't have the money that it thought that did. Well, something happened in the family or something like that. And sometimes a bookkeeper or just, there's a lot of money that gets lost like that every single day. And just that simple act of having somebody else as the one that signs the checks, because we do it in all the companies we work with. If it's not there, it gets in there right away, because you have to have somebody specifies what we're going to pay and somebody else approves that. And both have to, to get it submitted, even to get in the system to get paid, somebody's got to approve that knows what the heck it's for. And, so you got these steps in place to make sure that money, as you said, goes where it's supposed to and stays in your account if it should.
Right. I mean, in the fraud triangle, your job is to eliminate opportunity.
Yep. That's it.
That's it. Find a way to eliminate the opportunity for people to take money that's not theirs. That's the job. And not that you think somebody is going to.
No.
I mean, we all don't want that to happen, but if the opportunity never exists, it never will. Period. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. It's no different than in manufacturing factories. They call poka-yoke. It's you make things so you can't make a mistake. So they don't go together, the backwards, different things like that. That's all we're doing. We're doing it with accounting.
That's right. Exactly. That's a great analogy. I love that.
Yeah. So we're just making it so it can happen. But as we go through this, you've been in accounting a while before. I mean, we've got some time yet. I wanted to just talk about the good things that you see. Sometimes when you walk in and you go, wow, this is good.
Yeah. Okay. Good things. Okay. So a lot of times the good things that I see is that business owners there are a lot of business owners who know and want their accounting to be done correctly. And they want to find the right resource to do it properly for them. So to me, when I meet business owners who are like, I want my accounting to work right, I want this, there is a lot of good out there. And there are a lot of business owners, fortunately, podcasts like this and elder education happening. There's a lot of good happening in helping business owners to understand why they need to focus in this area. So that's the good. Okay. So there is a mindset shift happening away from it's a necessary evil to this is a very valuable thing. It's happening. I see it a lot in the business owners that I talk to. The other thing is that I see good happening with the business owners that I've talked to is that they are getting more educated about how to work effectively with other advisors to make sure the accounting is integrated into those discussions. Okay, so how does my accounting need to be communicated to my tax accountant? And how does that influence tax planning? How do I need to communicate that to my financial advisors so that they're appropriately putting into their systems like, hey, this is how much cash is coming out of my business. How much money should I be saving? How does that help me to achieve my personal financial goals? They're integrating those discussions into their insurance conversations. Do I have enough business continuity insurance? So there is more expansion happening around, to me anyway, these are the good things I see. I see there is more discussion about how to integrate these conversations.
Okay.
There could be more of it, but I see that as a good thing that's happening.
Nice. That's really good. So we always have to ask, ugliest situation you've ever walked into?
Oh man. Oh gosh. Ugly. I might have to have a disclaimer on that. Okay. I mean, from a bad accounting, I worked on a fraud case. This was years ago. It was they sold it was one of those buy here, sell here lot kind of things. It was a really big thing back in the day. They had terrible controls. The controller and the assistant controller were writing checks to themselves personally, paying their property taxes and things like that. It was crazy. The most interesting thing about it was that they would not let them go. We were doing the fraud investigation while they were still a few doors down, doing their thing. Now, eventually, of course, they pressed charges and it became a huge thing. And, after we started discovering lots of problems, but that was probably one of the ugliest and most awkward things. But what was cool about it was that I got to go participate in the interrogation, where the police questioned the I think it was the assistant controller at the time. And that was sort of fascinating. I mean, Damon, anytime accounting records are out of order, it's ugly to me and it breaks my heart. And when it gets cleaned up, and there's just something so satisfying as an accountant.
Oh,
when
yeah.
you pull a set of financials after you've seen the ew to the, oh my gosh, this is beautiful now. It's so informative. It's meaningful. It's useful. It is an incredible experience to see the transformation. So
yeah,
there's
cool.
countless. I mean, I've cleaned up thousands of sets of books in my life.
Yeah.
One thing that happened recently, and I will tell you that this is probably something that I was super surprised about, but this was a person who was using QuickBooks Online. And I pulled up the balance sheet. This is a starting point for all accountants, right? Look at the balance sheet.
Yep.
Right on the balance sheet, negative $300,000 bank balance. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Something's up, right? Anytime you see that, it's just this is bad. Turns out that the accountant and bookkeeper were aware of the fact that payroll in the general ledger was configured to come out of one bank account. Okay. But in reality, the actual payroll was coming out of a different bank account. So it was getting recorded in duplicate on the general ledger, hence this giant negative balance. It took 3 seconds to make that change, and it will never happen again.
Yeah.
That problem had been occurring for 3 years.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. So here's maybe my cautionary tale, my words of advice, things that I would say is that when you are selecting accounting talent, when you're choosing a CPA, when you're choosing people to work with, whether you're hiring or whatever, you have to make sure that these people are thinking, that they are critically thinking and looking at the financials and saying, I wonder what's wrong here. I think we might have to investigate this a little further. Hey, I think we might need to fix that, and be bringing these things to your attention. If they don't feel empowered, if it's not something that they feel comfortable changing, to talk to you about it. But ignoring this stuff is ludicrous. It's crazy that you would have a negative bank balance happening for 3 years when it's
Yeah.
literally, it's just a millisecond to get this thing changed and
Yeah.
correct it. Oh my gosh. Not to mention all the entries you have to make to fix it all. I mean, I was astounded. I guess maybe the other thing that I would say is that along those same lines, it's really important to sometimes just go get a second opinion, like get somebody to come in and take a look at these things. This is why, like you were mentioning, Damon, you have your clients who have financial statement review. It's okay to talk to new advisors, talk to people, have someone else take a look at your stuff, see if there's something that somebody else you've been working with have been missing. We are not meant to work with the same people for the entire lifetime of our business. I mean,
No.
it's okay to change. And so I would just say that sometimes those changes can have really huge and tremendous impacts on the quality of the work that's going to be performed going forward, and ultimately to the value of your business. So
Yeah. Yeah,
evaluate.
that's great advice. You know, the two things you said, make sure your financial people are critical thinkers, because they can't just be doing and not looking and doing a sanity check, really, you know, because like you said, if my bank balance is minus 300,000 and my bank balance is never minus, there's something wrong in our system we need to fix and
Right.
get it fixed rather than just leaving it.
Yes. Well, it
And
also told me that that business owner was not looking at their financials, because
yes,
if I'm almost having like a coronary,
yeah,
imagine what they would have been doing if they had been looking at their financials. They would have been like, what's going on here? This is wrong. Like, fix this. This is,
hmm
so we got to correct both of those problems, right?
and a mistake like that, you wonder what other things are in there that aren't right as well, and
Oh,
are
yeah.
just running. So these things, this is really a huge point that both of them you said, a second opinion. And it's sometimes you that second opinion is just what you need to help your internal person. Sometimes they didn't know, because there's a lot of changes that come around. They may not know. They may not know how to fix what's going on. There's all kinds of things that can happen. But I cannot tell you how many times that we talk to business owners in the last 5 or so years before they sell their business, that have been with the same CPA forever. And we switch to the new CPA, and we find out almost every time that there are something that, yes, you could do it this way, but that's what you do when you were a starting business, not when you're a mature $10 million business.
Yeah.
And the things that we see is, as you grow, you need to change your talent, because the complexity and the things that you need to get to do, you have to do, are so
Yeah.
different.
Well, and the engagement level, right? So, I mean, when you
Yeah.
first start off, I mean, maybe you don't need to have an accountant doing a financial statement review. Okay, if you don't really have a need for it. But this is an important thing, again, for business owners to be educating themselves on, is like, what are the different levels of engagement that I need as my business enters new phases of growth? And what is my plan for the business? So that's going to influence us to a significant degree, the level of engagement you're going to need to have with the appropriate accounting, and really just planning resources of all
Mm-hmm.
kinds.
Of all kinds.
So I
Yep.
wouldn't say it's necessarily just accountants, because there are so many different advisors that really need to be brought in at different points of time. So we have to spend a lot of time sort of coaching people on that, because it's, I mean, if you've never done it before, it is kind of intimidating. It's like, well, I don't know, I've never talked to an M&A advisor, or I don't know, like, what estate planning really means, or I don't know, I don't really know what outsourcing my accounting would look like.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of like, well, I'll just stick with what I know and that's easier. Well, but what's best for the business?
Yeah. Yeah, and you bring up a lot of good things, especially as you're coming towards the end and you're thinking about selling your business. That level of review that you're going to do at that time is significant. And well, we could do a whole nother thing on that, because that preparation can save you a lot of heartache and make you a lot of money when you're doing it the right way. In the last few years, that's for sure. Because because if people are listening now and you've got businesses that are doing 10 or 20 million in revenue a year, you have a vastly different um, level of expectations on the buyers, at the amount of accounting talent you have, the level of bookkeeping, all the way up to the finance that you have going on in your business. And it will simply limit your option to sell if you can't
Yeah.
do things.
Well, you know what? I'm really glad you brought that up, because this is something that's been on my mind lately. And especially as business owners do approach some type of exit, is you're going to have to get kind of good at this whole forecasting thing,
oh
right?
yeah, huge.
So big of a deal. Forecasting is well, especially when it starts to integrate into this whole exit planning conversation,
Yep.
is you want to create the narrative as to why your business has so much potential, right? Because that's what people are buying.
Yep.
Well, the narrative that accompanies that is your forecast. So you're going to say one thing, and then they're going to look at the numbers, and then they're going to look at your historical, and you're going to have painted this cohesive picture, and you'll have a line of buyers lined up at the door for this opportunity. And that's really what we're trying to create here. Is it's not just accounting for the sake of accounting, it's accounting for the sake of where are we going, how do we expand, how do we grow,
Yep.
how do we get to where we want to go. And all of these things we have to be thinking about them in different places along the way, different increments along the way, and certainly
Mm-hmm.
always with the future in mind,
Yes.
with a future focus. So where are we going? And I think it's so powerful when business owners have a vision. They see the potential that someone else, maybe they're a little tired. They've been doing this for 20, 30 years. They're like, okay, somebody else can take this and make
Mm-hmm.
it, triple it or whatever. But it's still up to you to paint that picture for them so that they
Yeah.
can really see the potential.
And honestly, that's where we spend most of our time with our clients, preparing their businesses for sale and working those last years to increase the value. It is usually laying out good forecasts, tracking very closely to make sure we're hitting those forecasts or staying really close, because this is so underrated in the sale of a business. Is when someone comes in to buy your business and you've got a year or two of, we forecasted that we were going to hit 10 million this year. We forecasted we were at 15 that year. We hit 10, we hit 15. We're forecasting 20 this year, and we're halfway through the year, and we're going to hit 20 because we hit 10 and we hit 15. If you don't have that ready to go, that is like losing your history books and not understanding what the history of the United States. That's how important it is for a business owner that wants to sell. Because if I want anyone to believe where I'm going, they have to see how I've gotten here. And if I've got a good system in place that projects with these projections, and then I've got a way to make sure my team takes us there, that is huge for that buyer, because it checks that box that most buyers can't really check, is, are they really going to go where they say they're going to go,
Mm-hmm.
and why?
And this is where this accounting function and the strategy begin to meet, right?
Yep.
This is where you have to marry the two together. It's it isn't, it's just not as, it's not as insignificant as people like to think. Oh, it's just accounting. It's not just accounting. There's no just in accounting, right? It is literally you working on creating a future. And that's where you marry those together. And that's the beauty of what will happen. And I'm sure you have lots of success stories where when people follow your advice, solid and succinct accounting happening in the background, systemic problems are resolved. Now you have the power and information to do that forecasting. Then you can translate that back to the operational processes, all those things start to, and then that growth, woo, then you really feel the traction and the power of all that coming together.
Yeah. Yeah. That definitely is a huge thing when you get those things working together.
Yeah.
Well, Susan, so awesome to get to talk to you today, because I knew this was going to be great. We're going to be able to, I knew we were going to cover some great topics, and just pointing out some of the reasons why accounting should be a priority for business owners. How is it that people, if they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, I love when people connect with me on LinkedIn. So Susan Bryant, CPA, CPP, you'll find me there. My email, susan@unboxedadvisors.com.
Awesome.
Send me an email. I'm always happy. If you really want that chart of accounts, connect with me. I'll send it over to you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Today we had Susan Bryant here. So great. CPA, tax advisor with Unboxed Advisors, sharing why accounting should be a priority for business owners. Thanks for being here today, Susan. I want to thank all the guests for being here. Thanks for all the comments. I know I only got to a few, but hey, thanks, Yazin. And we had, let's see, Austin, and so many people that I don't even know who you are on here, but thank you for doing that. We'll be back again later this week. Susan, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on, Damon.
Have a great day, everyone. Hang out, Susan. We'll finish up offline.